Captain John Avery stood before the panoramic window of the launch station, staring out at the bustling activity on the launch pad. The spacecraft, Kronos, gleamed under the artificial lights, its metallic surface reflecting a mosaic of human ambition and scientific curiosity. "Today's the day, huh, John?" The voice came from his second-in-command, Lieutenant Marco Diaz, who approached with a clipboard clutched under his arm. John turned, a slight smile breaking his usual stoic demeanor. "Looks like it, Marco. Still can't believe Command greenlit Gaia as our destination." Marco nodded, his eyes scanning the final pre-launch checklist. "It's a big step. First manned mission beyond the Kepler belt. Makes you think about the endless possibilities, doesn't it?" As they talked, Dr. Emily Singh, the mission's lead scientist, joined them. "Possibilities and dangers," she interjected, her tone a mix of excitement and caution. "The probe sent us data, but there's a lot we'll be discovering firsthand." "Exactly why we're going," John said, turning his gaze back to the ship. "To see the unseen, learn the unknown." Marco chuckled, tapping the clipboard. "And to keep us all in one piece while doing it, right, Captain?" "Right. Safety first, always," John affirmed. He then clapped Marco on the shoulder. "Let's gather the crew. It's time for the final briefing." In the mission control room, the rest of the Kronos crew had assembled. John surveyed the room. Each face reflected a blend of nerves and determination, from pilot Sophia Chen to engineer Alex Rios. He stepped up to the podium, clearing his throat as all chatter died down. "Team," John began, his voice steady and commanding, "today we embark on a journey to Gaia. Each of you has been chosen not only for your skills, but for your ability to adapt and overcome. This mission asks more of us than any before. We're not just explorers, we're pioneers." Sophia leaned over to Alex, whispering, "Hope this ship is as ready as we are." Alex grinned back. "She's ready. Spent the last week double-checking every bolt and panel. If something goes wrong, it won't be the hardware's fault." John continued, "Our primary objective is to assess Gaia's habitability. Dr. Singh and her team will lead the research operations. Emily, anything to add?" Emily stood, her eyes sweeping across her colleagues. "Thanks, John. Our mission is groundbreaking but challenging. The data we've collected so far is promising yet incomplete. We'll be conducting a range of experiments, from soil samples to atmospheric analysis. Every piece of data is crucial." The room filled with the soft hum of agreement and the weight of impending responsibilities. "And let's not forget," Marco added, stepping beside John, "keeping communications open with Earth is critical. We need to document everything, as we're the eyes and ears out there." "Right," John agreed. "We launch in 2 hours. Use this time to double-check your stations and gear. At 1300 hours, we meet in the docking bay for suit-up and final inspections. This is it, team. Let's make history." As the crew dispersed, the energy was palpable. They were about to undertake a mission that could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. John watched them go, a sense of immense pride and a trace of anxiety mingling within him. He knew the risks, the vast unknowns, but he also knew his crew, their capabilities, and their drive. The Kronos was ready, its engines a low rumble that promised the stars. And so were they. The cabin of the Kronos vibrated intensely as the spacecraft descended into the atmosphere of Gaia. The digital displays flickered with streams of data, and alarms sounded intermittently, adding to the tension already thick in the air. "Status report!" Captain John Avery shouted over the commotion, gripping his seat as another tremor shook the vessel. Pilot Sophia Chen, her eyes fixed on the controls, responded with strained calmness. "Entering atmosphere, but the gravitational fields aren't matching our projections. It's pulling us off course." John glanced at the navigation data streaming in. The numbers didn't add up. "Can you correct it?" "I'm trying, but the thrusters aren't responding effectively." Sophia's fingers danced across the control panel, attempting to stabilize their descent. Beside her, Lieutenant Marco Diaz monitored the spacecraft's structural integrity. "Hull stress within limits, but we're pushing it, Captain. We need to find a way to slow down." In the science bay, Dr. Emily Singh clutched a rail, her team strapped into their seats. She watched her monitors display the atmospheric composition, data that was crucial yet momentarily secondary to their survival. John made a quick decision. "Alex, manual override, now!" Engineer Alex Rios, already on it, called back. "Switching to manual. Sophia, you'll have direct control." Sophia nodded, her focus unbreakable. "Got it. Everyone hold on, this is going to be rough." The Kronos bucked wildly as Sophia expertly maneuvered through the turbulent atmosphere. The ship groaned under the strain, a haunting sound that echoed throughout the cabin. John watched the altimeter rapidly decrease. "Prepare for impact. Brace!" The crew tensed, securing themselves as best they could. With a deafening crash that sent shockwaves through the cabin, the Kronos slammed into Gaia's surface. The impact was less a single moment and more a drawn-out battle against the forces of nature as the ship plowed through thick alien foliage before finally coming to a jarring stop. Silence fell. The only sounds were the hisses of failing systems and the crew's heavy breathing. "Report!" John's voice cut through the stillness, authoritative yet filled with concern. One by one, the crew checked in. "Pilot's console operational," Sophia reported, checking her systems. "Navigation is down, but life support's holding," Marco added, assessing the damage to their tech. "Science bay is secure, equipment intact," came Emily's voice, a touch of relief in her tone. Alex unstrapped himself, floating in the low gravity. "I'll check the engine room. We might have some leaks." John nodded, relieved but alert. "Okay, we're down, but not out. First priority is to stabilize the ship and assess our location. We need to know what we're dealing with outside." He stood, steadying himself against the sway of the ship. "Sophia, work with Marco to get us a visual on our surroundings. Emily, start scanning for any biohazards or atmospheric anomalies. We need to be sure it's safe before we step out." As the crew sprung into action, John's gaze lingered on the viewport, where the alien landscape sprawled before them. It was a world of towering plants and thick mists, a stark, wild version of Earth that none of them could have anticipated. With a mixture of dread and wonder, John realized the enormity of their situation. They were not just explorers anymore. They were survivors on a planet that mirrored Earth millions of years in the past. And now, their mission was not just to explore, but to endure. In the dim light of dawn on Gaia, Captain John Avery and his team suited up for their first expedition outside the damaged Kronos. The airlock hissed as it sealed, and John felt a familiar thrill mixed with the stark reality of their precarious situation. "All right, let's move out carefully. Stay in visual range at all times," John instructed, his voice firm through the comm system in their helmets. Sophia Chen took the lead, her steps cautious on the unfamiliar terrain. The ground was spongy, covered with a thick layer of moss and undergrowth that was unlike anything they had seen in their training simulations on Earth. The team ventured forward, their path lit by the soft glow of their suit lamps. The forest around them was alive with sounds, alien calls and rustlings that hinted at unseen creatures lurking in the dense foliage. Suddenly, a loud crack pierced the air. The team froze. From the thick ferns to their right, a massive creature emerged. It stood on 4 sturdy legs, its skin a rough, mottled green that camouflaged perfectly with the environment. Its eyes, large and unblinking, fixed on the humans. "Steady," John murmured into the comm, his hand signaling the team to stay calm. "Emily, any idea what that is?" Dr. Emily Singh, who had been collecting samples nearby, slowly turned to observe. "It looks like a theropod, but not any species we know of. Possibly a relative of dinosaurs from our Cretaceous period." The creature tilted its head, studying the small group with what seemed like curiosity rather than aggression. After a tense moment, it turned and lumbered back into the forest. Exhaling slowly, John looked at his team. "Okay, no sudden moves. We need to respect their territory. Let's not give them a reason to see us as a threat." They continued their exploration, collecting samples and data. The atmosphere teemed with a high oxygen content, supporting the lush, oversized flora. It was Earth-like, yet distinctly alien in its vibrancy and biodiversity. "Look at this," Alex Rios called out, gesturing towards a strange, flowering plant. Its petals opened in response to their lights, revealing a bright, bioluminescent core. "Remarkable," Emily said, approaching to take a closer look. "It's using light to attract pollinators at night. Smart adaptation for survival." As they moved deeper into the forest, the reality of their situation sank in deeper. They were walking through a world that mirrored Earth's distant past, yet they were as alien here as any extraterrestrial visitor would be on modern Earth. The exploration revealed not just the wonders of Gaia, but also its dangers. Sudden shifts in the terrain and unknown animal calls kept them on high alert. After several hours, John called a halt. "Let's head back to the Kronos. We have enough samples to start some real analysis. Great work, everyone. Let's keep this up and stay sharp." The return trek was uneventful, but the sense of unease remained. As they approached the ship, Sophia voiced the question on everyone's mind. Captain, do you think we're alone here? As in, the top of the food chain? John glanced back at the looming trees, shadowed and silent. I'm not sure, Sophia, but I intend to find out while keeping everyone safe. Let's get inside and review the data. We need to understand exactly what kind of world we found ourselves in. As the airlock sealed behind them, the crew felt a mix of relief and trepidation. They had survived their first encounter on Gaia, but it was clear that this ancient and wild version of Earth held many more secrets to uncover. Back inside the confines of the Chronos, the crew gathered around the main console, their faces illuminated by the glow of data screens. Captain John Avery stood at the forefront, his eyes scanning the environmental reports and creature analysis provided by Dr. Emily Singh. This is fascinating, Emily began, pointing to a series of images displayed on the screen. The flora and fauna here are not just similar to Earth's ancient past. They are almost exact replicas of species we believed extinct for millions of years. John leaned in, examining the detailed diagrams of the theropod-like creature they encountered. So, essentially, we're walking through a living museum of Earth's history? More or less, Emily confirmed. But there's something else that's puzzling me. She switched the display to show a series of atmospheric samples. The air composition here matches prehistoric Earth almost perfectly, which shouldn't be possible naturally on a different planet. Lieutenant Marco Diaz joined the discussion, his brow furrowed in thought. Are you suggesting this isn't a coincidence? That Gaia was terraformed to mimic Earth? It's one theory, Emily admitted. But by whom? And why? As the team pondered the implications, engineer Alex Rios shifted the conversation toward their immediate concerns. Terraformed or not, we've got bigger problems. Our power systems took a hit during the crash. If we don't start repairs, we're not going to have enough energy to sustain the ship or continue our research. John nodded decisively. Okay, prioritize the repairs, Alex. Marco, help him out. Emily, continue your analysis with Sophia. I want to know everything we can learn about this planet. The more we understand, the better we can prepare for any other surprises Gaia might throw at us. The crew split up, each member attending to their assigned tasks with renewed urgency. John remained at the console, his mind racing with the implications of their findings. If Gaia was indeed an artificially modified version of ancient Earth, the question of who could have done such a thing, and their motives, loomed large. Later, as the suns of Gaia set, casting long shadows over the land, John and Emily took a moment to stand by a viewport, watching the alien landscape transition into night. John, if someone went to the trouble of recreating Earth's distant past, could they still be here, watching us? Emily's voice was low, filled with a mix of awe and apprehension. It's a possibility we can't ignore, John replied thoughtfully. And there's another thing. If this is a replica of Earth, could there be replicas of humans or human-like beings as well? That would change everything, Emily murmured, her gaze fixed on the darkening horizon. The night brought a chill that seeped through the walls of the Chronos, a reminder of the vast unknowns still surrounding them. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, patching up systems, analyzing data, and keeping watch over the mysterious world outside. As John retired to his quarters that evening, the weight of their situation pressed heavily on him. They were isolated, surrounded by the echoes of their home planet from millions of years ago, yet far from any familiar comfort. Tomorrow, he decided, they would attempt to send a distress signal back to Earth. But whether help could arrive in time, or at all, was another unknown that hung in the silence of space around them. The next morning on Gaia, a routine survey mission took an unexpected turn. While scanning a newly discovered cave system near the crash site, Sophia Chen stumbled upon something that was unmistakably not of natural origin. The object was partially buried under sediment and rock, but its smooth metallic surface gleamed oddly under the light of her headlamp. Captain, you need to see this, Sophia's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with excitement and a hint of uncertainty. John Avery, accompanied by Dr. Emily Singh, quickly made their way to the cave. The entrance was flanked by towering stone columns that felt eerily deliberate, almost ceremonial. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the walls echoing their footsteps as they approached Sophia's location. What have you found? John asked as he caught sight of the object. A cylindrical device, about 1/2 meter in length, adorned with intricate carvings and faintly glowing symbols. It looks like some sort of artifact. I haven't touched it yet, Sophia reported, stepping aside to give John and Emily a better look. Emily knelt for a closer inspection, her eyes widening. These symbols, they're not random. They look almost Sumerian, but different. This could be a form of writing or some kind of interface. John examined the artifact, pondering its implications. Could this be what's been terraforming the planet? Maybe it's a relic from whoever engineered this place. With great care, the team excavated the artifact from its resting place and transported it back to the Kronos. In the ship's lab, they set up a containment field around the artifact, ensuring that any unknown properties it possessed wouldn't affect the ship or its crew. Over the next few hours, Emily led the effort to analyze the artifact, with Alex Rios rigging up various instruments to monitor its energy emissions and potential functionality. The symbols began to pulse more brightly, reacting to their equipment, or perhaps to the artifact's removal from the cave. "This thing is active," Alex noted, checking his readings. "It's emitting a low-level energy field. Nothing harmful as far as I can tell, but definitely operational." As they continued their analysis, Marco Diaz kept an eye on the ship's external sensors. "Captain, there's something you should see," he called over to John, who was observing the artifact with Emily. "What is it, Marco?" John replied, moving over to the console where Marco was stationed. Marco pointed at the screen displaying a thermal imaging map of the surrounding area. "There are heat signatures coming from the direction of the cave. Lots of them moving towards us." John's expression hardened. "Prepare for possible contact. It could be wildlife attracted by the artifact, or something else." The crew took up defensive positions around the Kronos, watching as the shapes materialized from the forest. They were not the massive creatures they had encountered before, but humanoid figures, moving with purpose and intelligence. "They look like us," Emily whispered, disbelief in her voice. "Yes," John agreed, his mind racing. "But who are they, and what do they want?" As the figures drew closer, the crew of the Kronos readied themselves for a new chapter in their extraordinary journey on Gaia, poised to uncover the mysteries of the artifact and the potential origins of their doppelganger visitors. The artifact, now humming steadily in the lab, seemed to be at the heart of the unfolding drama, linking the past of Earth with the present of this enigmatic planet. Tension hung thick in the air as the humanoid figures approached the Kronos. They moved with an eerie, synchronized gait, their eyes fixed on the ship. The crew stood ready, their defenses up, unsure of the intentions of these mysterious beings. "Keep calm, everyone. Let's not provoke them," Captain John Avery instructed, his hand resting on the sidearm at his belt, a precaution he hoped he wouldn't need to use. As the figures drew closer, their features became clearer under the ship's external lights. They were undoubtedly human-like, but with subtle differences. Elongated limbs, a silvery sheen to their skin, and eyes that reflected the light with an animal-like tapetum lucidum. Dr. Emily Singh, standing beside John, murmured, "They're almost like a mirror image of us, adapted to this environment, evolved or engineered." Before John could respond, a sudden shrill sound pierced the air. It wasn't coming from the humanoids, but from deeper in the forest. The crew's attention snapped to the source of the noise as a new threat emerged. Out of the darkness, swarms of smaller, distinctly non-humanoid creatures surged toward both the humans and the humanoid figures. These creatures were insect-like, with hard, chitinous exoskeletons and multiple limbs, skittering across the ground and leaping from the trees. "Defensive positions!" John yelled, signaling the crew to ready their weapons. The humanoids, surprisingly, seemed just as taken aback by the onslaught, and momentarily paused, looking between the humans and the advancing swarm. The next moments were chaotic. The swarm descended upon them with startling ferocity. The Kronos crew and the humanoids found themselves back-to-back, fighting a common enemy. Laser weapons fired in short, controlled bursts, cutting through the swarm with precision, while the humanoids used tools that emitted sonic pulses, disrupting the creature's advance. Sophia Chen, piloting the ship's external defense systems, managed to thin the ranks of the swarm with targeted strikes. "How many of these things are there?" she shouted over the comm. "Too many," replied Alex Rios, who was providing cover fire for Emily and Marco as they tried to retrieve more weapons from the ship. Amidst the chaos, John noticed one of the humanoids, apparently a leader, signal towards the artifact inside the Kronos. It was then that John understood. The artifact was not merely an object of scientific interest, but a beacon, calling these creatures, intentionally or not. Making a split-second decision, John gestured to Emily. "The artifact, it's attracting them. We need to shut it down or get it out of here." Understanding dawned on Emily's face, and she nodded, sprinting back to the ship with Marco to deactivate the device. The battle raged on, with each side gradually understanding the tactics of the other. Despite the initial tension, a rudimentary form of cooperation began to emerge between the humans and humanoids as they fought side by side against the relentless swarm. Finally, with a concerted effort, Sophia's precise strikes and the disabling of the artifact, the last of the swarm was driven back into the darkness of the forest. Breathing heavily, the crew and their unexpected allies took stock. John approached the humanoid leader, his expression one of cautious respect. "Thank you," he said simply, knowing the words were inadequate. The leader nodded, a gesture surprisingly human. "We need to talk," it said, its voice a strange, melodic cadence that hinted at a shared history yet to be discovered. As the adrenaline of the battle faded, John realized that this encounter might just have opened the door to understanding not only the mysterious Gaia, but perhaps the origins of humanity itself. The night's events had irrevocably bound them together, human and humanoid, in a shared struggle for survival on this ancient echo of Earth. In the aftermath of the swarm attack, the crew of the Kronos and their humanoid allies gathered inside the spacecraft's main assembly room, a temporary truce forged in the heat of shared combat. The air was tense, but filled with a palpable sense of curiosity and cautious optimism. Captain John Avery initiated the dialogue, addressing the humanoid leader who had introduced himself as Iron. "Iron, we need to understand what just happened. Why did that artifact draw the swarm?" Iron, his features marked by the silvery sheen of his skin, nodded gravely. "That device, it is known to us as the Harbinger. It was left here by those who came before, meant to protect this sanctuary. But when activated inappropriately, it becomes a beacon for the swarm." Dr. Emily Singh, always eager for knowledge, leaned forward. "You mentioned those who came before. Are you talking about the original inhabitants of this planet, or the engineers of this ecosystem?" Iron looked at each human face, his expression somber. "Both. This planet, your Gaia, was terraformed by an ancient race, ancestors to both our kinds. They engineered it as a cradle for life, a second chance for civilizations to evolve, should Earth ever fall." The revelation struck the crew with the weight of history and the vastness of their discovery. John processed the information, trying to fit this new piece into their ongoing mission. "And your people, how do you fit into this?" "We were the custodians," Aaron explained, "left here to oversee Gaia, to ensure it thrives and to guard against threats, like the swarm. We failed today, not anticipating the Harbinger's distress call." Marco Diaz, always concerned with practical matters, chimed in. "What about us? We landed here by accident. Were we drawn here somehow?" "It is likely," Iron admitted. "The Harbinger can influence navigational systems, drawing those it deems necessary to the planet's survival or evolution." John pondered the implications, both moral and existential. "So this isn't just exploration, it's an invitation, or maybe a test." Iron's nod was almost imperceptible. "Yes, Captain Avery. How you interact with Gaia and what decisions you make here reflect deeper truths about your species." The crew sat in silence, each person wrestling with the scope of their unintended mission. Emily broke the quiet, her voice filled with a mix of awe and determination. "If we're to take part in this, we need to understand everything. Your history, this technology, everything." Iron agreed. "We shall share our knowledge with you. In exchange, we ask for your help to repair the Harbinger and restore its true purpose as a protector, not a beacon of danger." Over the next several days, the Kronos crew worked alongside Iron and his people. They learned about the advanced terraforming technologies that had sculpted Gaia and about the biological kinship between their species. The humans shared their own stories of Earth, of the strides in technology and the pitfalls of their stewardship of the planet. As they worked to repair the Harbinger, a deeper respect and understanding developed between the two groups. The crew trained in the use of the ancient technologies, amazed at the sophistication and foresight of the engineers who had built this world. Finally, with the Harbinger restored and reconfigured to safely protect Gaia without calling the swarm, John and Aaron stood together, looking out over the lush landscape that mirrored an Earth long gone, but not forgotten. "This is a new chapter for both our peoples," Iron said, his tone reflective. "Perhaps in time we can prevent the mistakes of the past from being repeated." John nodded, his thoughts on his crew and their journey back to Earth. "We'll carry this knowledge home. Today, Gaia. Tomorrow, Earth. Maybe this time we'll get it right." As the sun set over Gaia, casting long shadows and golden light over the land, the Kronos crew prepared for their journey back to Earth, their mission far greater than any had anticipated. They were not just explorers or survivors, but messengers of a profound cosmic legacy. As the twin suns of Gaia rose over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the lush landscape, the crew of the Kronos made their final preparations for departure. The ship, once a mere vessel of exploration, now carried a trove of knowledge and a new understanding of humanity's place in the universe. Captain John Avery stood in the docking bay, overseeing the loading of the last of their supplies. Beside him, Iron and a delegation of the humanoid custodians gathered to bid farewell. The air was thick with emotion, a blend of excitement and melancholy at the parting of newfound friends and allies. "Captain Avery, I cannot express in words the gratitude we feel for your help," Iron said, extending his hand. "Your arrival was unforeseen, but it has brought us hope that the legacy of our ancestors can continue through both our peoples." John shook Iron's hand firmly. "And we owe you a debt of gratitude as well, Iron. What we've learned here will change us forever. You've given us the tools to better ourselves and perhaps to help our planet avoid the fate that nearly befell yours." Dr. Emily Singh, carrying a datapad filled with research notes and collaborative studies, joined them. "We'll continue our work, Iron, and we'll share what we've learned here. There's a real chance for change now." Iron nodded, his eyes reflecting the dual sun's light. "The universe is vast, and its mysteries are profound. You carry with you a spark that can kindle a great fire of change for your world. Guard it well." As the final checks were completed, the crew boarded the Kronos. Sophia Chen, now at the helm, initiated the launch sequence. The engines hummed to life, a deep, resonant sound that spoke of power and readiness. John took one last look at Gaia, the wild beauty of its untamed landscapes etched in his memory. Then he turned to his crew. "Set course for Earth. It's time to go home." The journey back was quieter, reflective. Each member of the crew was absorbed in their thoughts, processing the enormity of their experience. They had left as explorers and were returning as bearers of a new vision. As Earth came into view, a pale blue dot growing larger on their screens, the weight of their responsibility settled on their shoulders. They were not just returning to report their findings, they were coming back as advocates for a profound shift in how humanity viewed itself and its place in the cosmos. Upon landing, the world was eager to hear their story. News of their discovery spread like wildfire, igniting debates and discussions across the globe. John, Emily, and the rest of the crew became spokespersons for a new way of thinking about Earth and its future. In the weeks that followed, international conferences convened, scientists and leaders debated, and plans were drawn up for returning to Gaia. But more importantly, the Kronos mission had sparked a global movement towards environmental stewardship and interstellar exploration. John often thought back to their days on Gaia, the lessons learned, and the future they had glimpsed. It was a future filled with promise and potential. As he watched Earth's nations come together with a newfound purpose, he felt a surge of hope. In the quiet moments, looking up at the stars, John knew that the journey was far from over. It was just the beginning of humanity's new chapter, a chapter of unity, exploration, and respect for all life, driven by the timeless echoes of Gaia. As the world turned and the stars shone down, the legacy of the Kronos mission continued to inspire. Humanity had looked into the mirror of its past on another world and was now ready to face its future, united and renewed on Earth.